It's our only real possession, yet we rarely reflect on the true value of our life. But more importantly, finding out what is that makes a life valuable. In your wanderings on the internet, you may have come across the trolley problem, which is a series of thought experiments to confront ethical dilemmas, using hypothetical case of the sacrifice of a person to save a larger number. And the scenario goes something like this. A runaway trolley is on course to collide and kill 5 people down the track, but a bystander can intervene and divert the trolley to just kill 1 person on a different track. This may look like an implausible scenario, but there are multiple analogous situations in real life about these life and death dilemmas, like the judicial system, medical, or even politics and war, to mention a few. But all these scenarios pose an ethical conundrum on the bystander, either by making him responsible of the death of an innocent person to save many, or being indifferent to intervene, condemning people who will have died anyway. This is referred as the principle of double effect, and the exploration of this reasoning comes from Thomas Aquinas in his Summa Theologica, where he debates about an act that has been foreseeable harmful effects which are inseparable from the good effects, like killing in self-defense, and he states that it's justifiable if the following are true. The nature of the act is itself good, or at least morally neutral. The agent intends the good effect and does not intend the bad effect. The good effect outweighs the bad effect in circumstances sufficiently grave to justify causing the bad effect. And this boils down to the principle of the lesser of two evils, which most of you should have been familiar with and has been a maxim existing in the Platonic philosophy. In his Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle wrote, "For the lesser evil can be seen in comparison with the greater evil as a good, since this lesser evil is preferable to the greater good, and whatever preferable is good," and which was reaffirmed later by Portuguese philosopher Baruch Spinoza in his book Ethics. He proposed that, according to the guidance of reason, of two things which are good, we shall follow the greater good, and of two evils, follow the less. And from this perspective, it seems there is not a problem at all. Considering all lives are worth equally, 5 lives will always matter more than 1, right? Unfortunately, that's rarely the case, and the perception of the value of a life changes based on the circumstances, culture, and norms of society. For example, considering the relevance in our society, the well-being of a president outweighs the lives of the compatriots. Culturally speaking, the life of a children or woman outweighs the lives of men. Or from the utilitarian perspective, the life of a CEO or company owner outweighs the lives of the employees simply because of the perception of value generated by that person to society. And the skewed perception of the worth of lives is prevalent in our society and has been prevalent across history, regardless of the notion that all men are created equal, and social movements to create consciences about unprivileged groups in society. But we keep hearing how the passing of a certain individuals is regarded as a tragedy, while society usually disregards the death of a commoner, echoing the quote often attributed to Stalin, "The death of one man is a tragedy, the death of a million is a statistic." And moving away from the collective sphere, a tragedy is a value judgment given by an individual, sometimes because of proximity bias about something we care, and that's why for this conversation, to understand the value of a life, I would like to move into the subjective perception of the individual and not for any other life, but our own. So, for this thought experiment, I would like to implement a few changes to the trolley problem. First, to substitute the 5 people with a baby, and not any baby, but an infant version of ourselves. Second, the bystander and the person sacrificed on the alternate track will be the same, an adult version of ourselves. And the purpose of this exercise is not to delve into the topic of abortion, but to inquiry about how, as we grow up, the value of our lives changes through time. We all come into this world the same way, naked and crying. And from there, our lives will certainly take different turns and twists. But if I ask you, what makes your life different? What makes your life special? Besides the obvious reason that is because it's your own, most probably you will respond something that we can generalize as your experience. You can believe your family and friends are the most important thing in your life, but it's not the people themselves, but your experiences with them, your memories, what makes those relationships. Because you will never remember the time you sat with your family and did nothing. Equally with work and passions. All those challenges and accomplishments can be translated into experiences. And what can I say about the travel and leisure when these experiences are the fondest memories that you can carry through our lives? Because our memories are driven by emotions, either good or bad. And through these experiences is how we establish our identity, how we realize who we are, of what our purpose in this life is. This process is called individuation, and it's how we become distinct from everyone else. Our personality, distilled into the essence that makes us unique, is often regarded as a soul. This is even beyond religious beliefs, and as we consider intelligent robots or AIs as soulless machines, while we attribute a soul to animals or plants, as if by having a soul was a consequence of being alive. But are we coming to this life with a predetermined essence, or do we develop it through time? Biologically speaking, we come with a set of predefined characteristics passed by our forebears in our genes. But besides the physical aspect, these traits can be extended to our behavior, often regarded as character. And we can define as a series of patterns detailing how we will react to different stimuli. That is the reason why a son who never interacted with his fathers can behave similarly despite never observing his father behaving that way. And our experience and environment shape the other half of our personality. Psychologically speaking, in Freud's theory of personality, our personality forms progressively as we grow up. From the ID, considered mostly subconscious and primitive, which drives our basic desires and needs, followed by the ego, which is the conscious aspect of our personality, which governs our reality and takes decisions. And finally, the superego, which creates our consciousness after we internalize our experiences and drive our beliefs and ideals. For a religious belief, I will take the example of the Buddhist tradition, where they believe in reincarnation, but more specifically, Buddhists believe in the transmigration of the soul, a process in which the soul migrates from one being to another during 7 years. And they consider that until that age, the soul of a child is fully complete. And this 7-year period has always puzzled me, because it's the same span of time considered by Sigmund Freud for the formation of the superego I just mentioned, which is the most complex aspect of our personality. But even if you don't have religious beliefs or studies in psychology, deep inside us, something tells us that a child is not fully conscious about his existence and the complexities of life until he's older than 7 years. You could argue this is just biological response for the conservation of the species, like the mother's instinct. But when you interact with an unrelated infant, you can identify that something is still missing, that is still in an incomplete personality that is still in development. But how do we know if that missing part is our soul? Most religions believe in the notion that we receive an immutable soul, crafted by our Creator, especially for us. And even we include those believing in reincarnation, the conception of the transmigration of the soul, either directly from the Creator of a previous existence, it will suppose that there should be memories from before our incarnation. Psychologist Carl Jung considered that rebirth necessarily implies the continuity of personality. But despite the reported cases of people remembering past incarnations, there has not been conclusive scientific evidence to validate the transmission of memories that take place, or that we have previous existence prior to our corporeal beings. You might wonder if something like reincarnation or soul formation can even be tested with common scientific studies. And the sad part of this story is that such studies that can offer a glimpse of understanding the formation or lack of formation of personality and soul, like in this case, unfortunately have been conducted not out of scientific curiosity, but because of human cruelty. It's time to dive into the heartbreaking stories of the feral kids. The story of Jeannie Wiley is probably the worst story of child abuse and neglect in history. Born in 1957 into a violent household in California, Jeannie was a normal baby, but a congenital hip dislocation required her to wear a splint, causing her to be late to walk, what made his abusive father believe she was mentally disabled. And he stopped paying attention to her and forced her mother and brother to do the same. At 20 months old, her abusive father confined her in a bedroom, and it was when Jeannie's torture started. Jeannie spent her days tied to a child's toilet in a makeshift harness, working as a straitjacket, and her nights were not much different, being tied into a sleeping bag with arms and legs immobilized inside a crib, covered with a metal screen. For years, Jeannie knew nothing beyond that crib, the toilet, and a few pieces of furniture inside her dark room. And the thick curtains covering the windows secluded her entirely from the outside world. Jeannie's father believed she would die at a young age, so her diet mainly comprised baby food and cereal, and was spoon-fed as quickly as possible, causing her to choke. Jeannie was forbidden to vocalize or make any noise. If disobeyed, her father will beat her with a plank and constantly frighten her by baring his teeth, growling like a dog, and scratching her, instilling an intense fear of cats and dogs on Jeannie. And if this was not torture enough, it's believed her father had sexually abused her or even forced her brother to do so. Jeannie's torture continued for more than a decade, until finally in October 1970, when she was 13 years old, her mother applied for disability benefits, and the social worker sensed something was wrong with Jeannie, shocked to learn that her true age, but having the appearance and demeanor of a 6 years autistic child, and immediately contacted the police. Jeannie's parents were arrested, and she was taken into the Children's Hospital for Los Angeles. After that, Jeannie started her recovery and became the center of studies to understand the harmful consequences of neglect and abuse she was subjected to. During her recovery, Jeannie started learning how to read and talk, and there was a glimpse of hope she could become a normal child. But unfortunately, her learning reached a plateau, and specialists believe her brain had missed critical periods of development which she could never recover. Despite her incredible recovery, everyone agreed there was something missing in Janie's personality, something that unfortunately she could not develop because she was robbed from it during years. And that is the same case with all feral children who have suffered abuse and abandonment. But these atrocious acts conducted by the most horrendous human beings make me wonder if we indeed come to this existence with a predefined or a migrated soul, will not these kids' personalities or essence develop similarly to normal kids? Or how relevant are the early stimuli for a child, the learning and engagement with society in the soul's construction? Considering this, I believe we can at least empirically agree that our essence or soul is not an immutable construct we are gifted at birth, but something we develop through time, shaped by our daily life experiences. If the opportunity to travel into the past to relive our lives were given to us, most of us will go back and change our past, either to fix the mistakes we committed or to change our decisions in order to secure a better future for ourselves. However, if we had the chance to be born again, but without living the same life, the proposal might not be that enticing. And I don't mention that because of the possibility of our family and upbringing could be worse than our previous life. But what makes the first scenario appealing, contrary to the second, is the accrued knowledge and experience we have from our life, and that drives our interest to change our life, to improve it. If we go back to our version of the trolley problem, where we have a baby version of ourselves on one track and our adult version on another, our baby coming to this world is only a clean slate, partially populated with the genetic information of our forebears, which still lack a soul or a personality. And it represents only a possibility with a full life ahead, a possibility of a good or terrible life, a happy or a sad one. But that's at this point, we can only hope. Our adult versions, even when we are technically closer to our deaths, we have a fully formed personality or soul, shaped by our experience of our lives, our minds full with the memories of all the people we have met, the places we have visited, the things we have accomplished, the mistakes we have committed, but also the lessons that we have learned. If two babies can be told apart based entirely on their physical characteristics and genetic charge, that's not true from adults. Even if they are twins, their minds will be entirely different. So if we were to say at which point of time your life is more valuable, I will say that it is in your adult self, because during your existence, you have accumulated experiences and memories that make you unique. I'm not saying this intended to disregard the worth of the life of an infant, but to make you conscious that you are the principal person responsible for the creation of what we refer to as a soul, which ultimately gives value to our lives. And that besides the childhood experiences you can control, it's you who decide which memories you will use to build your personality, to build your soul. Because what makes us human, if not a collection of memories engraved in our souls? And for this reason, I find the finale of the movie Blade Runner so deep and moving. When the replicant droid Batty is facing death, and he ponders on the things his synthetic nature, not bound to the biological limitation of humans, has allowed him to witness in his wanderings across the galaxy. But all those memories will fade after his passing, asking to the audience if he had indeed achieved his goal of becoming human, and if he had, in his synthetic being, harbored a soul. Thank you for watching. If you like the video, please share and subscribe to my channel. You can also visit my blog where you will find more articles addressing similar topics. Or if you enjoy thought-provoking literature, you might like my dark fantasy novel series as well. Links are in the description below. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.